Squid Game Season 3 just dropped, and boy was it a roller coaster. For writing some of the best emotionally filled scenes in the games, I was absolutely blown away by this season's ending. We're going to put up a big spoiler warning now because in this video we're going to be talking about everything, especially the ending of the show and that massive cliffhanger. Who would have thought that a baby would have won the Squid Games? A CG baby! I just couldn't believe Gi-hoon died and the island exploded and Junho didn't even get to do anything with all his searching efforts. Picking up where Season 2 left off, we saw the aftermath of the rebellion. Gi-hoon is the sole survivor along with Daeho and Hyunju, who are already back in the bunk room. And Gi-hoon is just immediately hit with the guilt of all the other players that died, who trusted him and joined his fight to take down the games. Well, that is until he hears Daeho got scared and then decides to blame everything on him. Game 4 is hide and seek with knives and locked doors, and it made for one of the most emotional games of the entire series. I thoroughly enjoyed this game and was so happy that they let it take up the entirety of the episode. I think the only other game that did this was Marbles from Season 1, and that game too was crazy just the same. And it's in this game that Gi-hoon makes his first kill of the entire series, which was a bit surprising. Technically, he had to kill someone to survive the game, but it still felt a little out of character, almost like he needed to kill Daeho to clear his conscience from all the guilt he had from the other players' deaths, including his friend Jung-bae. But it was in this game that the new player entered, 222's baby. I thought it was so crazy that a player had a baby in the Squid Games, and the VIPs and the frontman were both so nonchalant about it. Nobody could care less. And I think this is truly where the game changed, where the show changed, because up until now, Gi-hoon had completely lost hope and just gave up after the rebellion failed and he lost all of his friends. He took on the temporary side quest of hunting down Daeho and making him pay for his actions in the fourth game, but once he died, he was back to being hopeless. But now, the baby is in the picture. 149 comes to him and tells him that she was the one that had to kill her own son in this game just to protect Junhee and the baby, and she begs Gi-hoon to help protect them. Later, she eliminates herself, but what she said got Gi-hoon's attention, and his focus returned, and he took on the role of protecting the baby. Because if it wasn't for her, he would just die slumped against the bunks here. Gi-hoon literally carries the baby across the finish line in the fifth game, which was absolutely mental. They did a great job of making that game very terrifying. But still, who would have thought that the entire show's progression would completely be changed by a brand new character this far in? Gi-hoon's original mission was shutting down the games and proving to the frontman that he was wrong about humanity, that it was worth fighting for, that they were worth saving. That was his mission since the end of Season 1. He was ready to go to the US to be with his daughter, and then he chose to stay and fight the games instead. But that mission seemed to die with the rebellion at the end of Season 2. Even him trying to prove that humanity's worth saving and that the games were bad kind of just went away. Now his new mission in almost all of Season 3 is just protect the CG baby. And after Game 4, that's what the entire show becomes. So much so that the baby actually wins the final game. That was so crazy. Not only does Gi-hoon's actions change so much because of this, but so does the games. The frontman and the VIPs decide to consider the baby an eligible player in the Squid Games and then change the rules mid-games to accompany it. There's that moment where the guards come in to explain the changes in the rules to the remaining players, and they, as well as all of us, the audience, are just so confused. I mean, it did make for an extremely entertaining final game, which is not only the objective of the Squid Games to entertain the VIPs, but it was also the objective of the director to entertain us, the viewers. I mean, the biggest plot twist of the entire season of MG Coin actually being a cold-hearted villain ready to yeet his own baby off the cliff for even more money, that was only revealed 5 minutes into the very last episode. I mean, up until then, we really didn't know what side he was on. All of Season 2, he seemed to show interest in being a good person and being there for Junhee and the baby, giving him the possibility for redemption in Season 3. But then all season long, they have him walk the fence with his morality, trying to fight for Junhee and the baby versus going on killing sprees with the known current villain and then hesitating to protect the baby when the finalists were going to kill her, or even just not feeding her at the dinner was wild. I was not expecting to see a pink guard hand feed this baby here. But then, in the end, it seemed like he was going undercover and pretending to be one of the bad guys just to learn their plan and ultimately protect the baby. But then it just turns out that the only thing he was fighting for was all the money to himself. crazy. I was genuinely hoping for a redemption arc, and he did the worst possible thing he could in this situation. Now we know why in the behind the scenes interviews leading up to season 3, the actor was asking the fans to go easy on him. Yeah, he does some really messed up stuff. If he had actually survived, I wouldn't be surprised if the frontman approached him with a proposal to help run the next Squid Games. It even seemed like he took notice of him earlier in season 2 in one of the bathroom scenes. But this entire ending to this massive show felt so much like they just wanted to subvert our expectations. After Gi-hoon and MG Coin fought and 333 ends up falling to his death, instead of just refusing to play or trying harder to convince the VIPs or the frontman to stop the games, Gi-hoon decides to self-eliminate and sacrifice himself, leaving the baby to be the sole player technically winning this year's games. I mean, who could have seen that coming? Killing off the main character? 333 is a bad guy? A CG baby wins the games? I mean, good on them for trying to do something different instead of the typical happy ending of Gi-hoon winning the games a second time and walking away with the baby, but dang, it was really hard to process this ending. All the meanwhile, Junho finally makes it to the island just in time for them to self-destruct. But Inho was really interesting. I really thought that they would have spent much more time with Gi-hoon in his interaction where he revealed his true identity, and if not, I thought that would be because they were going to give the spotlight back to Junho since he's been searching for 2 full seasons now for his long-lost murderous big brother, but that didn't happen either. It was actually really tough to see anything from Inho during all the events that unfolded near the end. Did he honestly think that Gi-hoon would throw the baby to its death just for more money when he already has all the prize money from the first season and hasn't used that at all? I mean, obviously not. He only used it to try to stop the games, and now that he failed, he only wants to save the baby. I was just surprised that he had to die to do so. I think Inho thought his luck would let him survive these games as well, and so did I. I thought his plot armor would trump the actual games. And so many more times than not, Gi-hoon escapes by the last second. But Inho goes to say his farewell to Gi-hoon and just kind of processes what happens. It's crazy he was so emotional when he gave Gi-hoon the chance to kill the others unfairly in the night and save himself and the baby, and he refused, proving that he is better than Inho was during the games he won in quotation marks. It seemed like he was defeated, like he knew he failed himself, but he was so quiet and he had nothing to say. He ends up taking the baby, which for a second I wondered if he himself might try to take as his own to raise in place of the baby he lost when his wife passed away. I mean, I could totally see that if he wanted something more from life. But as he's taking it, Junho opens fire and announces his presence. They lock eyes and he yells why, the same exact thing he asked him in season 1 when he shot him on that cliff. Inho barely even acknowledges him and just leaves anyway, and that's it. The island is over. It blows up and we cut to a time jump 6 months into the future. Now, for some reason, that last interaction gave Inho the thought to leave the baby with Junho out of all people. This almost feels like a friendly gesture when they are not on friendly terms. It seems like even though they aren't getting along right now, he still trusts that Junho wouldn't steal all the baby's prize money, which I guess is a good thing. He trusts him enough that he'll make sure the baby gets raised well and will one day inherit their own funds. And after that, we don't see anything from Junho about his efforts of finding his brother. Since the baby's delivery, he knows that Inho's alive and that he didn't die on that island, but does him saving the baby mean that he knows there's enough good left in him where he's just not going to search for him anymore? I really want to know what Junho is going to do since he didn't get a conclusion to all this effort he's been putting in the last 2 seasons. I worry that with the spin-off show being the next Squid Games content that we're going to get, they're not going to follow up on any of these characters and all the things left unfinished in this show. I feel like the next video I do might just be everything I still have questions about, all the loose ends. Subscribe so you don't miss that one. I'm not going to hold back near as much as I am in this one. Now, after this, No-Wool is seen visiting the father and checking up on his daughter, who is doing much better now. And I was genuinely shocked that throughout all of her efforts, she would never reveal herself to the father. I don't see why she couldn't have, but at least all her struggles ended up being worth it. It feels like out of everyone, she's had the most conclusive ending to her story and got the proper closure that so many others deserved. She also gets a call saying they may have ID'd her daughter that she thought was dead, and we see her heading to China in hopes of finding her. And at the same time, we get a surprising season 1 closure to Se-byuk's little brother Gi-hoon gave to Sang-woo's mom to look after. They were able to track down and locate their mother after so many years and reunite them. This was so unexpected but very welcomed. I love this little follow-up. But the next scene was the most shocking and one of the best parts of the end of the season. We see In-ho go to Gi-hoon's hotel, take his prize money, and bring it to the US to Gi-hoon's daughter and personally hand deliver it to her. Keep in mind, he just handed her a bloody tracksuit with no context and $20 to $30 million. It was definitely a shock to see him do this, but it was kind of nice. After Gi-hoon self-eliminated, the show lost its main character, so wrapping up all the other storylines it tried to felt very loose and unimportant. This was probably the one that mattered most and actually felt like it wrapped something up kind of. Not that Gi-hoon's daughter has any idea why she just got a bloody tracksuit. I'm surprised In-ho gave that to her because that's incriminating evidence. The money was a sweet gesture. It doesn't seem like they're hurting on it, but it's more respectable than taking the money and putting it back in the Squid Game's bank account. But after the drop-off, he was driving through the streets of LA and just happened to come across another recruiter, a US-based recruiter playing the same Korean slap game with a homeless man. I mean, it's pretty eerily accurate, but this confirms the Squid Game's universe is expanding outside of Korea. It seems like the rumors of them writing an American spin-off show are true, because with this tease, we're almost guaranteed to see the franchise continue on in different countries around the world. And with that, the possibilities become endless. You could do one in each different country, all playing their own unique childhood games. In the US version, you could see hopscotch, freeze tag, musical chairs, dodgeball. There are so many good options that would make for great entertainment. And as long as the writing and characters are good, I think this would be a success as well. It would be really hard to beat season 1 of Squid Game. The bar was set just so high, but still, Squid Game is high-performing Netflix IP that could easily be expanded. The bigger question that lingers is, after this big tease, will In-ho make an appearance in the new show? Because it seems like the recruiter locks eyes with him and recognizes In-ho, that he was a part of this organization as well. But if they do a spin-off, I doubt they would bring any original characters over. It sounded like they were really trying to make this as conclusive of an ending as they could have, but I can't help but feel like it needed a bit more. Gi-hoon is out of the spotlight, and the baby became the main character of this season. The games were some of the best nail-biting, edge-of-my-seat television I've watched recently. It just seemed like they needed more time to wrap up all the loose ends before officially closing out this show. Tell me what your favorite moment from season 3 was, not including that weird Ilnam statue, and don't miss the next video. I will see you very soon. Peace.